Hello everybody, this is Ryan Cozy with the Chapel at Crosspoint. I hope and pray that you all are doing well at Hamburg Wesleyan. Hey, just very briefly, I wanted to give a brief synopsis of some of the significant findings that I went through with some of the senior leadership of the team there at Hamburg Wesleyan. I realized that this is going to be kind of a supplemental video to help some of the elders, I believe, in staying up to speed with the most recent findings of the survey. I want to reference first and foremost that there, on the survey itself, the findings report that I sent out to the senior leadership team on pages 103 and 104 of that report, the last two pages, those are the significant differences between when we took the survey a couple years ago and the most recent results that we see in the data today. I'm going to focus on a couple of things in particular, but you'll have a full 2 pages of significant findings that you can reference back into the report as well. First and foremost, with regard to demographics, one of the first things that I thought was worth talking about a little bit was the conversion growth rate at the church. Now, when we looked at those numbers, I believe back in 2011, there was a 24.4% conversion growth rate. Contextually speaking, the average church in America is around 3 to 5%. So to have Hamburg be so high, that's an extraordinary number, and that's something that, if you'll recall, I said it's a great number to celebrate. Above and beyond that, in 2014, that number dropped significantly, mathematically speaking, down to 21.5%. But one of the things that I wanted to flesh out just a little bit more was between the years of 2011 and 2014, I believe there were 73 people that came to know Jesus through a ministry or an individual between that time, either inside the church or outside the church. And the split of people who identified where they had gotten to know Jesus either outside the church or within the church, that split was actually 50-50. So based on the research, I would say that with new conversion growth, the numbers that we see are about 50-50. 1 in every 2 people comes to know Jesus either through an individual or a ministry of Hamburg Wesleyan, or they've been grafted in. They know of Jesus through a ministry outside of the realm of Hamburg Wesleyan. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, feel free to reach out to me and I can clarify that further. The second thing I want to point to is issues of doctrine. And so, as you'll recall, we're interested in things above and beyond if someone has prayed to receive Jesus. While that question is very important to us, we also are looking at things as it relates to the belief of Jesus being the only way, the assurity of salvation, the Trinity, the idea that God can forgive all sin, and the Bible being the authoritative word in someone's life. And so I found no significant differences between the year 2011 and 2014. So to me, that's a good sign that within the realm of orthodoxy, so to speak, we have very similar findings, above 90% in terms of people and the average of what they believe about those things, meaning more than 9 out of every 10 people fall within the realm of orthodoxy, those that believe and are attending worship at Hamburg Wesleyan that have self-reported these findings to us. So that's pretty important to me. I'm going to skip through Sunday morning and small group and service. There were some significant findings as it relates to small group, but I really wanted to spend just a little bit more time on the personal formation findings that we see in the data for your church. First and foremost, we notice a significant decrease in the amount of prayer that's happening. In 2011, the average person was praying roughly just over 6 times a week, and that number is now down to around 5.2 times per week. But the reason for that dip, I believe, can be explained by asking the question different. So we were trying to isolate more specifically concentrated periods of time throughout the week where people are praying to God. And so that there is a reason for that drop, and I believe that reason is in the rewording of the question. And you can find that research on page 71 of the exhaustive report. In addition to that, we ask the question of, as you pray throughout the week, how often does it cause you to consider ways to love and serve other people in the community? And we see a noticeable jump, which is a positive thing, from 6.93 out of a scale to 10 up to 7.28. Now, while that jump doesn't seem to be mathematically significant, maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, it actually is. It's a very nice jump. And so we want to see that sort of progression in what people are perceiving in terms of their prayer life and engaging people around them. Now, it doesn't assure that people will be more missional, but it does help us to see that there is a trend where people are beginning to think a little bit more about ways to love and serve. One of the things that we noticed a drop in a negatively phrased question is the question of, for me personally, I am not very intentional in building personal relationships with other followers of Christ. That would be found on page 84 of the survey findings in the exhaustive report. Back in 2011, that number was at a 3.76, and it has jumped away and north to about 4.01. Now, because it's negatively phrased, we want that finding to be as close to 1 as possible. So when we see it shifting away, one of the things that I become concerned with a little bit, especially as it relates to correlations, is, well how can we be helping our people to be more intentionally relational with other followers of Christ? Because Christ-like relationships are so important to one's spiritual formation, but also to their concern for engaging lostness. That's what we see in the research. So this would be something that I would be a little bit concerned about as it pertains to Hamburg Wesleyan. The final two things I want to hit on are total presence, proclamation, and conversion. We found no significant differences between 2011 and 2014 with the average individual, pages 93 to 99 of the exhaustive report. Total presence, which means relationships built with people that you believe are not saved, do not know Jesus. The average individual at Hamburg is building one relationship in a 12-month period. That's the same in 2011, and it's the same today. Proclamation, how many times are you actually sharing the gospel in the course of a given year? Well, the average individual at Hamburg, as they build one relationship, you can expect that they'll share the gospel about once a year. The average believer at your church. It holds steady for what we see in 2011. And obviously, if presence and proclamation aren't happening, we don't expect that conversion is going to happen. So the average individual is leading no one to Christ in a given year. Now, a couple of important things here. When you hear about the conversion growth rate in conjunction with kind of a lack of missional behavior, it begs the question, well, how can we be seeing people come to know Jesus and yet we don't see a difference in the behavior? And that's a great question. And the answer is, I believe that, as is the case with many large churches in America, the professional staff of churches are deeply cognizant of, hey, if somebody is invited to go to church, maybe I can help close the deal in sharing faith and sharing Christ with someone. So the average person is probably inviting people to church, but as it relates to taking gospel presence and proclamation outside of the realm of the church, that's very likely not happening in the data. I would also caution that the findings at Hamburg of 110 are lower than the U.S. National Index. We've surveyed about 30,000 evangelicals at this point, and the average evangelical in America between 2010 and today is at 220, 2 relationships built, 2 proclamations, no conversions. So to see Hamburg on the median down to 110, I would say it's fair to say there is a significant lack of missional engagement in the daily goings of people based on what they're reporting to us and what we're looking at. I'll close with this. Based on where your church is at today, what are some key things where we are seeing missional behavior happen? And these are what we call correlation indexes, or Pearson correlation coefficients. So we know this. The big three, presence, proclamation, and conversion, are most likely influenced right now, potentially, with the following. If somebody is serving in the church, if somebody is sitting down to read the Bible regularly throughout the course of the week, the more that that's happening. If someone professes to be a Christ follower and they exercise a confidence in sharing their personal story of faith with others. If someone is a Christ follower and they express a proficiency in knowing what their gifts are, those are big things. And then finally, how many times in the last 3 months has somebody opened up their home for the purpose of building deeper relationships with other people? Given the state of the church today at Hamburg Wesleyan, those 5 indexes are the most important things that we see in the data today. Now, could those change over time? Yes, they could. But given the state of where the potential for missional behavior could happen, which would be the outliers, people that are doing above and beyond 110, what we find is that in their life, those 5 things really matter. They're involved in service. They're sitting down to engage the Word of God weekly, more proficiently than others. They are aware of their ability to tell their story effectively. They are cognizant of their gifts, and they open up their home for the purpose of building deeper relationships with others. I hope and pray that this is helpful. If there are questions, feel free to reach me at rkozey@thechapel.com. As I mentioned, I talked with the leaders of your church a few weeks ago, and obviously they can reach out to me as well. God bless you, gang. Thank you for taking this survey, asking these questions, and I pray that this update is helpful for you all. Blessings.